Okay, good morning everyone. Today we're going to talk about hooking a Linux client up to a Windows domain. I'll give you guys a little video tutorial demonstration on how to do that. And for the purposes of this demonstration, I'll be using two virtual machines. I have one running Windows Server 2008 R2 and one running Ubuntu 10.04. So obviously if we want to hook something up to a domain, first thing we need to do is we need to create a domain. So I'm going to kind of give a quick rundown on how to do that. If that's something you're already pretty familiar with, you can probably just skip ahead to the juicy parts, the Linuxy parts a little bit down the road, but just get right into this. First thing we're going to do is we're going to rename our server, and because this is domain controller, we're going to call it DC1. And it's going to want to reboot itself, so we'll let it go ahead and reboot. The next thing we need to do is we need to install Active Directory services as a role. So the left hand side of our server manager, we're going to select roles. We're going to go ahead and add a role. I'm going to skip this little introductory page. I'm going to make sure we click Active Directory Domain Services. Go ahead and add whatever required sub-services they want you to install. I'm going to click Next, Next, and Install. And while that's installing, we're going to go ahead and configure our network adapter for the domain controller. So we're going to open network and sharing. If that's open, we're going to click on change adapter settings. And we're going to select local area connection 2, properties, and we're going to change our IPv4 settings. I'm going to put this on the 192.168.2 subnet. So we're going to call our domain controller 2.1. Use the default subnet mask. Gateway doesn't matter. And we're going to make sure that our domain controller points to itself for DNS. I'll go ahead and close out of that. I'm going to wait a minute while our role finishes installing. Once that's done, we should see everything went according to plan. So we're going to go ahead and close that out. We're going to promote our server to a domain controller. We're going to open our start bar. Down in the search, we're going to go ahead and type in DC promo. Push enter. That should give us our DC promo wizard. And we're going to use default. We're going to create new domain in a new forest. And just for this tutorial, we're going to call our domain example.com. And we're going to leave all this default. This little warning message pops up, but it doesn't really apply to us, so just go ahead and yes out of it. We'll leave everything default there. Go ahead and put our domain password in. And we'll go and get a drink or something while that's installing, because it's going to take a little while. And once that's done installing, it's going to ask us to reboot again, so we'll go ahead and do that. Okay, once we're back up and running, we could look at our server manager and we can see that we have dc1.example.com. That's our domain controller. Now we could connect our Linux machine to this as it stands, but we want to go ahead and create a user and a share. So once we add it, we've got a few things to do. So in roles, we're going to go to Active Directory Domain Services, Active Directory Users and Computers, and example.com. Double click on users, and in the big middle pane in the white space, we're going to go ahead and we're going to add a new user. We're going to keep it simple and call him user1. Give it a password. And we want to uncheck must change password at next logon. We're going to call it never expires. We're going to create a group. We're going to call our group Unix admins. And we're going to add our user to our group. Once that's done, I'm going to create a basic share. The root of our C drive. Create a folder called share. Inside of it, create a text document. I'm going to call it test. And we're going to add a little text inside of it. And a nice little congratulatory message for later on when we get this thing running. Go ahead and save it. That'll be our pat on the back down the road. And then we're going to create our share. We have our properties, sharing, advanced sharing, and we want to share it. And we're going to go ahead and we're just going to give everyone full control, just to keep things simple. And in our security permissions, we're going to go ahead and we're going to give our users full control. And just to make sure everything's up to date and running as it should be, we're going to open a command prompt and we're going to run gp update force. And while that's doing its thing, we can hop over to the Linux machine and start getting it ready to roll. First thing we want to do is open a command prompt. And we're going to go ahead and make ourselves root with sudo su. And we're going to install some software. Now, for the purposes of this demonstration, I'm using a software package called Likewise Open. That's going to do most of the heavy lifting in terms of getting our Linux client hooked into our Windows domain. So we're going to do an apt-get install. Likewise Open 5 is the specific name of the package. And we're going to install the GUI little sub package as well. I'll give you guys like a quick rundown of that for those of us who are more comfortable with the GUI. And we're going to install SMBFS. That's Samba file system, and that's what we're going to use to mount a Windows share a little bit down the road. So go ahead and push enter. And they ask you if you want to continue. We do want to continue, so go ahead and yes. And it'll take a few minutes for that all to download and install. At a certain point, it's going to ask us some questions about our domain. Now, it calls it a realm, but it really means a domain, realm, domain. So once our default Kerberos realm, so we're using example.com. So in all caps, the name of our domain or realm is going to be example. It's going to ask us the name of our server, where DC1 is our administrative server, our domain controller. Let's go ahead and put DC1. And it's going to ask us another administrative server related question, and we're going to use DC1 for that as well. It should take a few minutes to install. And once all of our packages are installed, we need to configure the network adapter on our client to point to our domain controller. So what we're going to do is, up top here we have the little up arrow, down arrow. That is what Ubuntu considers to be a graphic representing our network adapter. So we're going to right click on that. We're going to go ahead and edit connections. And we want to select ETH1 because that's our network adapter, and we're going to edit it. And we're going to go to IPv4 settings, and we're going to change it from DHCP to manual. And we can see we have a whole bunch of addresses, or you could put a whole bunch of addresses down here. So we want to add one. Just click add once, and we're going to call the address of our client 192.168.2.2. That mask is going to be 255.255.255.0. And it won't let us apply unless we had a gateway. We don't really need one, but just so it'll let us do what we got to do, we're going to go ahead and give it the address of our domain controller as the gateway. And then we want to make sure that for DNS servers we're using the IP address of our domain controller, which in this case is 192.168.2.1. Go ahead and click apply. Probably ask you for your password. Everything should be good there. And sometimes it's a little weird about applying the update to the network adapter. So what we're going to do is in the command line we're going to do an ifconfig ETH1 down, take down our network adapter, and then we're going to do an ifconfig ETH1 up to bring it back up, and that's significantly quicker than waiting for it to figure itself out. So we should be able to ping our domain controller now. and everything looks good on that end. So I'll show you guys what the GUI looks like really quick for the domain join. And the name of the command is domain join -GUI. You can see it's pretty user friendly. If we were going to do it this way, we would just put in the name of our domain here, example.com. But because we're tech-savvy geeks and we like to do things command line style, we're going to do that. So the command line command to do this domain join is going to be domain join CLI for client, join, then the name of our domain and who we want to join as, and obviously we want to join as the domain administrator. It'll ask us for our administrator password, so go ahead and put that in. And we should get a prompt telling us to reboot, much like when you join a Windows machine to a domain. You should go ahead and reboot. And just to kind of get that warm fuzzy feeling that we know everything's going to plan, we're going to jump over to our domain controller and our Active Directory users and services and users and computers. And if we go to computers, we should see our Ubuntu machine pop up in the computers list, so we know that our client and our server are in communication with one another. So for all intents and purposes, right now we have the client added to the domain, but it doesn't really do any good just in and of itself. So we're going to do a few things on the client to make it feel a little bit more at home. First thing we're going to do is we're going to log on as the local administrator. And we're going to add our Unix admins group to the sudoers list. And what that'll do is it'll give our Windows group administrative rights on the Linux machine. Because by default, we don't have administrative rights. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to open up a command prompt. And we're going to sudo sudo. That'll let us edit the sudoers file. And if we scroll down to the bottom, we should see a section titled Members of the Admin Group may gain admin privileges, may gain root privileges, so we're going to go ahead and edit that. Now this file here is a little finicky. If you don't put things in just so, it won't go. So this is how we're going to do a %, name of our domain, which for us is example, // excuse me, then the name of our admin group, which for us is Unix admins, and then all equals, all in parentheses, space, all, and we're going to Control X, yes, and enter to save, and then we're going to go ahead and reboot our machine again to make sure everything takes. And once we're powered back up, we're going to attempt to log on as our domain user, so we're going to go ahead and at the logon screen select other. And our domain logon is going to be the name of our domain, which for this example is example, all in caps, / name of our domain user, which is going to be user1 for us. Go ahead and put in the password, and we should be good to go there. And just to make sure we have sudo privileges, we're going to open up a terminal, and we're going to try and make ourselves root with sudo su, and boom, we're good to go. Okay, now we're going to try and mount our Windows share to our Linux machine, and to do that, first we need to create a mount point, so we're going to make sure we're in user1's home directory, and we're going to make a directory called Windows. And then we need to edit a configuration file called fstab, so we're going to do sudo nano etc/fstab. This is all the various mount points that exist on the system already, and to the bottom of this file we're going to add // name of our server or IP address, which for us is 192.168.2.1, name of the share, which is share. Then we're going to add the name of the actual mount point, which is going to be home / likewise open, / name of the domain, which first is going to be example / user1 Windows, and the type of file system we're going to be using is SMB, so go ahead and put in SMBFS. And then we need to configure it to use our username and password to access the share. So after SMBFS, we're going to do a username equals user1, comma, no space, otherwise it won't work. Password equals whatever password we decided to use. And then we're going to do a space 0, space 0. I'm going to save that. And we're going to reboot. Once everything comes back up, we're going to go ahead and log on as our domain user. Again, with our domain name all in caps, example, user1. And if everything went to plan, we should see our Windows share pop up on the desktop. There it is. We're going to try to access it. We can see there's our little test file. We'll go ahead and open that. We want to display. We don't want to run it. And there's our little congratulatory message. Sweet. So just to kind of sum up everything that just went down, we just set up a domain controller for a Windows 2008 domain. We joined a Linux client to our domain, and we configured a Windows group to be able to run sudo commands as a domain user on a local Linux machine, and we configured a basic share. So hopefully you guys enjoyed. If anybody has any questions, feel free to get in touch, and you can reach me at gredie6786 at students.ecpi.edu. Thanks for watching. I hope everybody learned a little something, and have a good day, guys.